Hello, and welcome to Friend Connection. I'm Emily, and today we have Kenya and Liberia.
Hello, I'm Kenya.
Hello, I'm Liberia.
Question number 1. What did the Civil Wars accomplish?
Well, in 2007, Kenyatta won the presidential election, even though Odinga was highly favored. Protests broke out immediately, and a bunch of people were killed during violent protests. Ultimately, there was a deal made that Kibaki could remain president while Odinga was made the prime
There are
minister.
two civil wars in Liberia. The first one lasted from 1989 to 1996 and killed up to 250,000 people, which at that time was a large portion of the Liberian population. After less than 3 years of peace, the second civil war started, starting in 1999 and ending in 2003. The second civil war started because of President Taylor assisting rebels in Sierra Leone. Ultimately, both civil wars accomplished the replacement of previous residents in Liberia.
Question number 2. How were the Civil Wars dishonorable?
In the 1950s, the Mau Mau raided the loyalist village of Lari. All of the soldiers were away, and so 70 people were killed, most of which were women and children.
Hello? During the Civil War, thousands of Liberians were mutilated and raped, often by armies of drugged child soldiers led by warlords. Unlike Kenya, child soldiers were extremely common throughout Liberia. However, they did usually follow a warlord or tribe, which is similar to Kenya. The Second Civil War was not as bloody as the first, and it did not last as long. However, many were still murdered, and many of the soldiers who fought were children.
Alright, next question. Question number 3. What were the differences in the groups that fought in the Civil Wars?
There are 4 major parties that exist in the ethnic conflicts in Kenya. The Forum for the Restoration of Democracy, or FORD, is associated with the Luhya tribe. The Democratic Party, or DP, is associated with the Kikuyu tribe. The Labour Democratic Party, or LDP, is related to the Luo. The Kalenjin tribe supports the KNU. Voting is almost completely dependent on the tribal boundaries.
One of the main groups that was fighting was the government, and the other was the rebels. Rebels are mostly comprised of groups such as tribes and warlords, which is similar to Kenya.
On to the next topic. Question number 1. What is an example of military intervention?
Al-Shabaab is a Somalia-based terrorist group with links to Al-Qaeda. In 2011, I sent military troops into Somalia to fight Al-Shabaab because Al-Shabaab had threats towards our border security, and their kidnappings and killings were bad for tourism.
Throughout Liberia's past, there has been backlash from citizens of Liberia, as well as from European countries, the US, and other African countries. This backlash would eventually lead to the civil wars in Liberia. There was also military rule and conflicts in Liberia prior to the Civil Wars, such as in 1980 when Master Sergeant Samuel Doe carried out a military coup, outing and publicly executing President William Tolbert and 13 of his aides.
Question number 2. How did you deal with foreign people?
The Mau Mau was a secret savage society who pledged to slaughter Europeans and drive them out of Europe. They were super active during the 1950s, so the British created detention camps for anyone who was suspected of being part of the Mau Mau. They would use extreme torture methods to get information out of them and prevent uprisings. Over 1 million Kenyans were forced out of their homes and into camps, even if they weren't part of the Mau Mau.
Unlike Kenya, foreign immigration from outside groups was not common. However, similar to Kenya, Liberia intervened in other wars in neighboring countries, the most prominent being Sierra Leone.
Question number 3. Why did you intervene in the war?
As I said earlier, we intervened in the war because Al-Shabaab posed border security threats, and the killings and kidnappings were bad for tourism.
They intervened in support of the rebels in Sierra Leone because of the diamonds they could get in exchange for weapons.
Wow, I didn't know that. Question number 1. What were some social challenges you faced?
In Kenya, women are underrepresented in political positions. The Kenyan parliament only has 15% women, and there is a constitutional requirement that 1/3 of seats are filled by women, yet only 7 of the 26 cabinet principal secretary positions are held by women. Women are also known to spend less time sleeping than men. They spend 1.4 hours of unpaid labor for every 1 hour a man works. In Tangle Bay, Kenya, women spend 1.8 hours getting water every day, and as water becomes more scarce, they are forced to walk further and further to get water. The CEDAW, the Committee for the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, examined Kenya in 2011, and they noticed a high prevalence of sexual abuse committed by male teachers and students in schools in Kenya. They also recognize that women aren't paid for the work that they do, and there's a large wage gap in between the two. Kenya has a high percentage of children in schools, however, the quality of school is terrible. Most people graduate with degrees, but they still lack the skills they need to make a living. 50% of Kenyans live under the poverty line, and unemployment is at 40%. 75% of the country is dependent on subsistence farming, but the climate is unpredictable, and when the weather is bad, many families go hungry because they can't farm. Lastly, Kenya has one of the highest HIV and AIDS rates in Africa. They have at least 1.6 million people infected as of 2016.
For all of Liberian history, there have been challenges. Before 1938, there were forced labor practices, and before 1958, racial discrimination was common. In 1999, Ghana and Nigeria accused Liberia of supporting Revolutionary United Front rebels in Sierra Leone. This caused Britain and the US to threaten to suspend aid to Liberia, and created the Second Civil War. From 2013 to 2016, the Ebola virus swept through Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone, killing 11,300 people, mainly in Liberia. However, there has been hope for Liberia. In 2005, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf became the first woman to be elected as African head of state.
Wow, you guys are so alike. Question number 1. What was a big problem within your government?
The Kenyan National Police Department is considered one of the most corrupt institutions in Kenya. 3 out of the 4 Kenyans describe the police system to be extremely corrupt. Over half of Kenyans who came into contact with the police reported being paid a bribe. The police frequently engage in false imprisonment and abuse of human rights. In December of 2016, 127 traffic police were fired because there was evidence of large amounts of money being transferred to offices without an explanation.
Can you tell me more about that?
Police come to Kenya to get rich. The police station in Nairobi is nicknamed the ATM machine because the police are able to obtain so much money from their jobs. Criminals are able to buy their freedom because the salary of a police officer is not sufficient to fund their life.
In Liberia, many foreign companies conduct oil mining in Liberia while paying off government officials. Government officials have also participated in logging in Liberia, which has been done illegally. Over the past few decades, not much has been done to stop corruption in Liberia. However, Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf focused on stopping corruption when she was elected in 2005. Currently, Liberia has canceled some contracts, issued criminal indictments against some officials who broke the law, and struck agreements with the EU and Norway to save the country's forests.
Question number 1. Why did you choose to become a one-party state?
1 year after Kenya gained independence, the Kenyan African National Union, or KANU, and its main oppositional party joined together. The party had majority control over the government, and in 1964, Kenyatta, the leader, was appointed president and granted executive powers. In 1969, he banned the new opposition party so he could run uncontested. Unlike many countries, Kenya becoming a one-party state is the result of 2 main things: the voluntary merging of 2 groups and the banning of an oppositional group. Unlike many countries, where the one-party political state is forced and made a law, Kenya's one-party state came naturally.
In 1980, Master Sergeant Samuel Doe carried out a military coup. This created a one-party state while he was leader until 1984 after a return to democracy.
On to the next topic. Question number 1. What was a major influence in returning to multi-party democracy?
In May of 1991, 6 oppositional leaders formed the Forum for the Restoration of Democracy, or FORD. The Moi government declared it illegal, and several members were arrested. A pro-democracy rally was banned, but it happened anyways. Many of the countries withdrew funds after the arrest, and Kenya lost a lot of vital aid. Because of the international and domestic pressure, President Moi agreed to reforming the two political party system.
Liberia turned to a democratic system in 1984, after influence from the U.S. and foreign countries. This pressure and change led to a presidential election in 1985, which the previous ruler, Master Sergeant Samuel Doe, won. It is likely, however, that the 1985 election was rigged. Another election was later held in 1997, after several years of the First Civil War conflict. President Taylor won the election, and international observers declared the election free and fair. Unlike in Kenya, the elections went rather peacefully, with little uprisings and conflict at polling stations.
Thanks, folks. See you next time.